right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jazziz Last Call. If you are watching along with us on Facebook and YouTube, and to the Jazziz Backstage Pass. If you're listening in audio form, I am your host, Brian Zimmerman, executive editor of Jazziz Magazine, and we've got a very special episode for you tonight, a special edition audiophile episode. It's going to be of particular interest to record collectors, vinyl purists, record aficionados, and the people who love them. We are going to be joined by Jeff Coates, the in-house analog expert from Pro-Ject Audio, and he is going to be walking us through the 10 things you probably didn't know about keeping a record collection. He's going to be giving us some tips and tricks for taking care of our audio equipment as well. Now, if you are a record collector, and I know you're out there watching, I'd like to know about your collection in the comments. Let us know if you're a collector of vinyl, CD, cassette tape, 8-track. I know you're out there too. And let us know how many pieces are in your collection. You know, our Jazziz contributor, Mark Stryker, he comes on the program a lot, has a record collection of over 6,000 pieces in his basement. So let's see who can beat Mark. Let us know in the comments, and let us know where you're watching from, because, we want to know. All right, with that, Jeff Coates is here. He's standing by. Like I say, it is last call. Let's go one more round with Jeff Coates. Jeff, are you there?
I'm here. Nice to see you, Brian.
Good to see you too, Jeff. Hey, thank you so much for joining the program today. This is a really cool episode. You know, we're in the midst of a vinyl renaissance. A lot of people are out there collecting vinyl, spinning vinyl. It is a good time for vinyl. And I'm very glad you're here to walk us through the 10 things we probably didn't know about keeping a record collection, as people are starting to build their collections. People are indoors. They're doing a lot of listening, and you're the man to do it. So before we get into the 10 things, I'm just curious, can you tell us a little bit about Pro-Ject and how long you've been there and what you do for them?
Sure, absolutely. So Pro-Ject's coming up on 30 years old. It's a company based in Vienna, Austria. One of the very first companies to kind of come out of that, I guess we call it the early vinyl revival. When Heinz Lichtenegger founded the company, he was finding that a lot of the big Japanese companies that were really great at producing affordable sort of mass market turntables had exited the category. And we were starting to see this sort of bifurcation where you can buy some real basic plastic stuff or some really, really esoteric, very expensive products. Heinz mostly is from a classical music background. He's actually a patron of the Vienna Philharmonic. He's a big fan of large-scale classical music. But for him, he always felt that the best way, dollar for dollar, to get a really high-performance audio system was with an analog front end. So all of a sudden, those affordable turntables were gone. So a friend actually came to him with a turntable that was manufactured in what was then Czechoslovakia at a Soviet-era manufacturing plant that was only sold in the Eastern Bloc. He said, "Hey, Heinz, you've got to hear this thing." So Heinz literally took it, take a look at it, jumped in his car and went to Czechoslovakia and convinced this Soviet-era manufacturing group to build him a turntable. So that was the genesis of Pro-Ject Audio Systems. And fast forward 30 years later, we're the largest manufacturer of high quality turntables in the world. Every piece that we build is done out of the Czech Republic in that same facility in Lidovel in the Czech Republic. We, depending on the month, between 10 and 15,000 turntables. So we're the largest non-Chinese manufacturer of turntables and analog electronics in the world.
Very cool. And you are their in-house resident analog expert, yes?
Well, I mean, so in the U.S., we distribute Pro-Ject Audio Systems as part of the Macintosh Group. Cool. So you see some of the gear I have behind me. We've got some Macintosh equipment, Sonos Faber loudspeakers, of course, the Pro-Ject turntable and electronics. So this is all part of the same family. I run sales and marketing for Pro-Ject and Sumiko Analog here in the U.S.
Very cool. I've been to the Macintosh listening room in Manhattan. I sat down with, some Miles Davis. I think it was Porgy and Bess playing. And man, the depth of the listening experience, it was just astounding. Every frequency of the ride cymbal, very resonant bass for people, who maybe aren't listening to jazz on vinyl as much these days. You're missing out. It sounds great. And so for those that are, Jeff, you have, again, some things that we probably didn't know about keeping a record collection. So are you ready to dive into the list?
Yeah, no, I think so. That's great. I actually, you'll forgive me. I'm going to have to go off the set list here.
We all do it. We all do it.
Yep. But I think one of the things that I really wanted to focus on is pretty much our top three are really the community of buying records and how important that is. I mean, you mentioned earlier, a lot of us were spending more time at home. This the quarantine that we're all kind of going through, whether or not people are doing it to the degree they should be. But this is hitting a lot of our favorite musicians and a lot of our favorite performers, especially
True.
hard.
Yes.
The venues that we all know and love for live music, and this is especially important for acoustic live music like jazz, which, God, it's such an experiential type of music.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I really like to point out when people are collecting or starting a collection of records is that it's so important when you have the opportunity to support directly the bands, the labels, and the small independent record stores that really help move this whole thing forward. I was surprised, and actually one of the I read a last call recently. You did something with Basin Street Records down in
That's
New
right.
Orleans.
Yep.
Love those guys, big Kermit Ruffins fans for years and years. And there was something that happened back in March where they put out sort of a plea like, "Hey guys, we're paying our artists. The quarterly bills are due.
Right.
Help us out." So I ended up buying a couple of records that I'd been looking at for a long time. And that, they actually took the time to reach out just with me as just a regular customer and a lover of their music. And that really imprinted on me just how important that is. And a lot of these outfits that we think about as being larger than they are, perhaps, they're just the fellow fans in the back of the room watching the band.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are producing these records. So yeah, cool. Whenever you have the opportunity to, get out there, support those local artists. A lot of these folks that are doing, whether it's a record that you can buy directly from them, and then a little off topic, if they are doing some of the the online performances, kick a couple bucks in towards Venmo, support these local artists as much as you can, because it's really, really important.
Totally.
And it kind of feeds right into the second part, which for me is so important about record collecting, is it really is a community. You don't necessarily realize it, but you're never going to get connected with the same people. If you're just doing everything on streaming, of course it can sound great. But the chances of you being connected with the artists themselves or people that are in that group or fans of that artist, a whole lot slimmer. So
that's a good point. Yeah, there is a person-to-person equality about record collecting. Whether it's going to the store to purchase the record, back when you could go to stores and purchase records, or at a show, record trade conferences. Yeah, and not to mention, there's something about kind of congregating around the record player that's also very communal. So, two strong points to lead off the list there, Jeff. I like this.
Yeah. Well, and you just served up number 3. I don't know where this actually set on my list, but the communal aspect of listening is a big thing for analog playback. Actually, the Pro-Ject's headquarters over in Austria sits on, the translation is analog way. So as a company, we really have this idea, this philosophy that, this certainly can work its way into digital formats. It's not an exclusive to analog, but there's something very special about taking the time out of your day and saying, for right now, I'm going to focus on this one task. And all that is the enjoyment of music.
Right.
The LP really lends itself to that, because here you have, for this 20 to 25 minutes, you and the people that you're, hopefully you're lucky enough to spend some time with, whether it's family or friends or whether you're by yourself, you can take that time and really focus and have this active engagement with the music in ways that's super difficult to do if it's just sort of in the background while you're cooking. Or
it's so true. You cannot strap a turntable to your arm and go for a run. You can't put it in the car as you look for something on MapQuest. You're there, the record's playing. 25 minutes later, you got to turn it over. You have the album cover in your hands. You don't necessarily get that tactile feel, with streaming. You can read through liner notes, personnel, and in jazz, this is a huge thing. It's like next to baseball card collectors. We want to know everybody that plays on the album, who produced it. So yeah, I agree. There's the tactile, communal aspect of all of this. And keeping a record collection, you are helping to sustain that community for sure.
Yep. No, absolutely. We're big fans of active, engaged listening. And that's really one of the things that listening on analog especially, I think a lot of people are surprised when they start a collection. Just, wait a minute, I'm actually more in touch with the music that I've already loved. I thought I already loved this band, And of course, you continue to, but it's just another layer of your relationship with them, which
Very
is pretty
cool.
special.
Yeah. All right. If my math is correct, and it's often not, I believe we're on number 4. Did we
We're on
make it
number
there?
4.
I think so. Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's right. We did have a list format that we were trying to keep to. It's you'd warned me about this at the in the pre-roll, but I'm equally bad at lists. So I have
This is what happens when you take an
numbers.
English major and put him with an audio guy. It's numbers are.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the other things that I like to point out for people that maybe haven't had a record collection in the past or just kind of new to it is that the records they're surprisingly durable. There's this idea that oh man, I have to be so careful, and while you should treat them with the respect they deserve. I mean, this is a really robust format. The Microgroove LP has been with us since 1948. I mean, this is a relatively mature technology.
Yeah.
But one of the first things we always try to do with it's a new dealer training, or whether we're doing a turntable setup at a record store or one of these things online, just sort of taking people through initial kind of unboxing and setup, is just sort of demystify it. The LP format is remarkably durable, and everything doesn't have to be perfect to get really good sound.
Right.
Now, it will reward making things perfect. So careful setup is absolutely important. Having the best, cleanest possible records is going to increase your performance.
Gotcha. And what about a tip for keeping those records clean? Making sure they don't. How should you store the records? Just some basic vinyl care.
Sure, absolutely. So right out of the gate, one thing that I think surprises a lot of people when they buy a brand new record is that thing needs a cleaning pretty much immediately.
Oh wow! Right off the bat.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you'll see this sometimes. I mean, every once in a while, even when you try to get a record on the platter that first time, you notice there's that little extra bit of vinyl that wasn't quite spun off when they were drilling the holes for the center spindle. There's all kinds of little debris and dust and dirt that can get picked up in the manufacturing and then in the boxing process. So we always recommend giving them a good clean before you place it on your record player for the first time. After that, as long as you're keeping things pretty clean, just something real basic. I keep a real simple, just a little, carbon fiber record brush.
Okay.
That I always use every time before I give it a spin. Just a couple of rotations, just make sure that any visible dust has been removed. And then off camera over here, I actually have one of our vacuum record cleaning systems. Wow. So about $500, you can actually get a really nice semi-automatic record cleaning machine. So you apply the fluid, give it a couple of rotations in either direction, and that thing's coming out absolutely pristine.
Beautiful. And then we could kind of see your record collection behind you over your shoulder there. Store these records vertically.
Vertically.
Yes, very important.
Absolutely. And when you have the opportunity to, you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to buy the archival inserts, but we do recommend, especially if it came in a full color printed jacket, just to get some really good rice paper jackets or some good anti-static jackets to store your records. That's going to help. You don't want to ever be in a situation where you find that LP actually I've had this happen on a couple of favorites, unfortunately, where you're at a show, you're not really paying attention, and you find that the adhesive from the actual LP insert is bonded to the surface of the record. It's heartbreaking.
Oh no! Yeah, so, leave it in a humid car overnight. Yeah.
Oh, don't ever do that, of course. I mean, that's they're right up there with, pets, small children,
Yes.
Keep them out of
Treat them gently. Very nice. Cool. Okay. Well, hey, we'll move right along then to the next item on the list. Whether we glossed over 5 or 6 in there, who knows at this point.
Yeah,
we're freewheeling.
I think we got right in there. Well, this is one that comes into a lot of collectors, especially as you get more into jazz and older blues and some things. Every once in a while, you're going to come across some 78 RPM records. Yeah. So really important, especially if you're kind of new to the hobby. Don't ever try to play those on a modern elliptical diamond stylus phono cartridge. All right. So the cartridges that we use today, they're all made to work with the vinyl formulations that we've been using for stereo LPs for years and years. Unfortunately, that diamond will rip that shellac record right up. And permanently damage it, making it unplayable.
Yeah.
So if you are starting to expand your collection and getting into some older stuff, some of the classic 78s, et cetera, you're going to want to buy a period appropriate photo cartridge. And that's going to mean it's going to have a conical steel stylus.
Gotcha. That's a good tip, because I guarantee you there's going to be someone out there with like a Robert, like some Delta Blues 78 is going to put it on their modern record player and totally ruin it. So that's a good advice. If you're going for those 78s, these are shellac discs, 5 minutes roughly of music. This would have been when? 1920 and earlier? Or?
Pre 48, really.
Yeah,
I mean, anything. So back in 1933, I think you found your first 78 RPM discs.
Yeah.
So that's, that was the first sort of at least in this modern laterally cut records.
Gotcha.
But yeah, totally different format. Be real careful with those, because there's a lot of life on those. Same thing's true if you ever get into the 80 RPM Edison diamond discs. That's a conversation for a different day.
And then how about some basic stylus care? How often should you replace? How do you clean? You pull the little dust off?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is a real common one. I mean, you see people do that with their finger. Please don't do that.
I am guilty of that. By the way.
I mean, it's one of those things. You can do it, and it's probably okay until it's not.
Right.
When you look at
the
tip of the stylus, it's sitting at the end of this, typically an aluminum or boron cantilever that goes up into the inside of the cartridge. It's pretty easy if you just took a little too much force to pull that entire cantilever right out of the center of the cartridge, or to uncenter it between the magnets that actually create the electrical current that we turn into sound inside the audio system. So you want to keep your fingers off that stylus, be real gentle with it. What I would recommend, if you've got a big house, you got dogs, kids, there's people cleaning, moving around, if you have a stylus guard that you can pop back onto that cartridge when it's not in use, please do so. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, you can buy a wide range of little stylish brushes. I know we make one from Pro-Ject. It's about $15. And they're really just a very gentle bristle type brush. It'd be very difficult to exert any sort of significant pressure on the tip of the stylus. But really, as long as there's not any sort of visible material on it, you'll see. I mean, quite often, been guilty of this a couple of times, where you look and there's just a whole like dust bunny.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely. Going for a
like,
ride.
Oh man,
yes.
Let me take care of that. But yeah, as long as there's no visible dust, But we do recommend keep an eye on it. Back in the day, it was really easy to go into an audio store. You could actually bring your stylus in, and they could examine it under a microphone and tell you if there's uneven wear.
Wow.
For most of us, though, at this point, that's not so easy to do. So I'd say keep an eye on it every 2 years or so. Probably want to replace that stylus on your cartridge if you can.
Very cool. Jeff, hey, I want to hear about the last few points on keeping a record collection. But before we do, we're talking records. We're talking great eras of records. And I want everybody watching to know about our most recent issue. Jeff, this is our summer 2020 issue, all about the age of fusion. Some great records, groundbreaking records coming out during this period. We're talking 60s, 70s. This issue has already been mailed to subscribers. It's out there, but we've converted all the stories from this print issue, along with every other print issue, into web articles. To access those web articles, you'll need a digital subscription. And fortunately, for Last Call viewers and record collectors out there, we're offering a special subscription rate for just 99 cents per month for 3 months. You can unlock unlimited digital access. Plus, we'll enroll you to receive our forthcoming print issue, which is all about, I was telling Jeff earlier, the art of the album. So collecting albums, producing albums, listening to albums, album cover art. It's all in there. That issue is coming out in September. You sign up for the digital issue now. You get 3 months of digital access, plus that print issue comes September. So, Jeff, I just wanted to let people know about that. We are talking records after all. But we can continue on now, where I think we're nearing the bottom 3-ish of the things you need to know about keeping a record collection that you probably didn't know before. So what's next on the list, Jeff?
Well, I mean, we're all kind of nerds about keeping our stuff cataloged.
So true.
There's some great tools out there. We do a lot with Discogs, but just always nice to keep track of what's in your collection and then recognize that, hey, these are valuable. Now, I'm not going to go down that path where, you see the guys on Craigslist and like, oh, I've got a Beatles record. It's got to be worth $100. It's like, no, it's the commercial release, and it's not a particularly valuable one. But, keep track of this stuff, and that all plays into the storage and keeping them clean and keeping your turntable set up. it doesn't take long for even a modest collection to be worth a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
Especially if you're buying new or harder to find used records, not at
Yep.
all uncommon to pay 30, 40, $50 for a record.
Right.
Now, keep that in mind when you're setting up your turntable. So if you have the option to properly set up a cartridge on your table, keep your record clean. But for setup, it's essential that you make sure that cartridge is riding right down the center of the groove, that it's exerting the proper amount of downforce, and that it's set up properly on the arm so that it's not exerting too much pressure on one side of the record groove or the other. These little simple setup things are going to get a lot more life out of your record collection. And the last thing you want to be doing is damaging this expensive investment that you've made.
Right.
So that's not only going to get better sound, they're going to last longer and they're going to sound better for a lot longer period of time.
And for a newbie who may just be starting out, the best way for them to tell if that arm is exerting a little bit too much pressure, what should they be listening for? Or alternatively, where could they take it to make sure everything's looking good?
Oh, great question. So the probably the easiest way you're going to hear this, if you've got like a solo trumpet or some solo female vocal especially, and you're getting in towards the inside groove of that record, so you're getting closer towards the label, if it starts sounding like that guy's really got to open up his spit valve on the trumpet, or you're getting a lot of extra sibilance on what should be a really clean female vocal, you're experiencing something called intergroup distortion. Now, to a certain extent, that's something that just happens on a record.
Right.
You can only be perfect at 2 points over the surface of the record. So the closer you get to the label, you are going to have a little bit more distortion than out towards the meat of the actual record. But if you're hearing that, you want to double check your cartridge alignment. If that's not something you can do yourself, there's a lot of tools to do this. There's a great online resource. You can check out our website at projectusa.com. Vinyl Engine is a really good sort of general use place where you can download some free protractors for making sure alignment's set up properly. But if you have a good local independent dealer, you can, again, check out our dealer locator. Most of our better dealers are going to be able to take a turntable, regardless of manufacturer, bring it in, check it out for proper operation, take a look at your stylist, make sure that if one's necessary, they can mount a new one for you.
Very cool. I'll add one caveat to that, Jeff, which is if you're listening to a very mediocre trumpet player with what sounds like a clogged spit valve, it might be me. It's probably a recording of me. That's why I never made it to the bigs. But fair warning, no, I'm just kidding. I haven't recorded a thing. And the recording industry is grateful for that. Anyway, Jeff, we'll move along to the next item on the list. I think we're nearing 10. We're somewhere in that ballpark. Again, not the math major, so don't blame me, folks.
Yeah, I think we got through most of our list.
Very cool.
That's the downside. I kind of like doing these things more conversationally as opposed to like let's hit the bullets. I'd have been terrible on Letterman back in the day.
Yeah, going through the top 10. Well, let's learn a little bit more about you then. You've got a nice record collection behind you. How many pieces are in it, and where does the music kind of fall? What's the bulk of the records in your collection?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a kind of a more rural area in southern New Hampshire, so music was not, it was just kind of whatever was on the radio. And then as I got into college, all of a sudden I sort of discovered that college radio independent rock scene, got more into sort of independent rock and punk and that sort of thing. But one of the things that I'm really grateful for is a lot of that music did lend itself towards experiencing all kinds. So, if you start getting into, one of my favorite bands of all time, Morphine out of Boston, Massachusetts.
Sure, yeah.
3-piece. I mean, these guys are jazz as all get out. They just happen to be playing in rock clubs.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a baritone sax,
That's
a 2-string fretless bass, and a drummer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing.
Punk jazz.
So I found that it's continued just being musically curious.
Very nice.
So over the years, it's certainly expanded. It's gone into a lot of crazy directions. So yeah, I mean, I'd say normally, for the most part, indie rock and punk and that kind of thing is more sort of my wheelhouse. But there's a lot of country. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but a reasonable amount of jazz, especially as it gets down to the New Orleans stuff.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It just sounds so much better on vinyl, man. To hear, again, the full resonance of a tambourine or a sousaphone, say, you just don't get the depth when it's compressed into something like an MP3. So yeah, let's say, Jeff, someone watching, maybe on the younger side, or again, never really had a record collection or had one back in the day and wants to get back into it. What's
Sure.
like a good starter turntable, like a good starter rig that, won't break the bank, but will bring like some really good sound for this budding record collection?
Yeah, so we're actually really excited. We just came out with a new product called the T1, so Pro-Ject's always spent a lot of money in the drivetrain for a record player. Right? So we're going to put a really good tone arm with really good bearings so it traces the record nice and smoothly. We're going to put a good cartridge on there. You're going to have a good low noise main bearing so the platter spins smoothly, no rumble. But the basic stuff has always looked pretty basic. It's had like a vinyl wrap on it. It's been like, it sounds great, but it doesn't look so great. The T1 is our first sort of, hey, let's fix that part. Let's build something that's amazing sounding, that, again, hits a very popular price point. They're around $340 to start,
Mm-hmm.
but look fantastic. So it's got a really nice tempered glass platter, so we get a lot of rotational mass. So once that platter comes up to speed, it's going to stay there. Still an excellent main bearing, great tone arm with excellent bearings. And all that stuff is so important to extract as much music as possible from the surface of a record. Because any of those weird little distortions, if that platter is creating a little bit of rumble, that vibration works its way up through the platter into the surface of the record. The stylist picks it up. It has no way to know if that vibration was in the surface of the record, if it's music down in the grooves, or if it's noise. So all that gets communicated upstream to the rest of your system. So yeah, like the T1's fantastic tip.
Very nice.
We actually just introduced the model with that as a built-in phono preamp and electronic speed change. So when you're going back and playing all those brand new, 45 RPM remasters, and the whole Miles Davis catalog just came back
yes,
down.
Yeah, with all those new 45s. Yeah,
45 RPM.
Yeah.
But that's a pain in the neck. If you got to take the platter off, physically move a belt, put the platter back on to play 45, you're probably not going to do it.
Right.
So having electronic speed change is a nice feature.
Very
cool. Take a look. We got a lot of great decks, and we're sort of in that first really good turntable range. We start sort of in that $350 to $400 range, and we go up to $15,000.
Nice.
But
okay.
Because of the scale of turntables that we build, there's nobody else in that sort of performance space, that builds something that's going to have the same level of quality, especially in that lower price point. It's amazing what we can deliver.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we'll close with the flip side of that question then, because we have a lot of veteran record collectors out there as well. Someone's got the great rig set up. What's maybe one more thing they could do to just up their performance a notch?
Sure. This often gets left out, but excuse my reach.
No problem.
Buy a better phono preamp. So this is depending on what you've got it connected to. If you've got a good cartridge, especially if you're getting into some of these more esoteric moving coil cartridges, they're lower output, but they can extract a lot more detail from the surface of the record. The downside, the output of a phono cartridge is already super low. If you go to a moving coil cartridge that's even lower, you have to have very, very quiet electronics to be able to grab all that electrical information and then get a good clean audio signal.
Right. Okay.
One of the big things I recommend is get it properly mounted, get yourself a decent moving coil cartridge, and then this is about a $400 phono preamp from Pro-Ject. This is called our Phonobox Ultra 500. It's a limited edition, really cool product. But on the bottom, it actually has a range of adjustments here that are for getting the appropriate amount of gain and the proper loading. So we can take that phono cartridge and make sure it's exactly in the correct electrical situation. So it's going to get the best matching to the rest of your audio system, super low noise, and plenty of gain. So we're going to get all the information off that record.
Beautiful.
But yeah, that's kind of the next level. Get yourself a good cartridge. Yeah, good cartridge and a good quiet phono preamp. You're going to extract even more enjoyment from the records you already have.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, hey, thank you so much for joining me for the last call and talking about the 10-ish things you probably didn't know about keeping a record collection. I thought it was a great list, man. And like you say, I can't wait until the record collection that I am keeping brings me back into the communal world that is record collectors. I think it's going to happen soon. So here's to that, man.
Indeed.
All right,
Well,
Jeff.
nice
Thank
talking
you.
to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I will see you backstage. I'm just going to wrap with everybody watching at home.
All right.
So long,
Sounds
Jeff.
good. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, thank you to Jeff Coates, again, of Pro-Ject Audio for coming in and let us know about some things you probably didn't know about record collecting and offering those tips, whether you're just starting out with your record collection or if you're a pro and you want to take it to the next level. All right, this has been The Last Call. We will be back live tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the bar here. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Follow us on Facebook. Sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on YouTube and click that notification bell so that you know when we are going live. I'm Brian Zimmerman. Thanks for watching, everyone. So long.